Indeed, Lord, this morning we are counting our blessings, naming them one by one. Grateful to you always for granting us grace to be in this service. We are asking, Lord, this morning that you may grace my homily as I share in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Please be seated. Good morning, brothers and sisters, and allow me to decree this morning that you're gathered to actually share and reflect on a powerful message on Thanksgiving. And I will be basing my homily this morning from the book of Luke, the Gospel reading, chapter 17, from verse 11 to 19. A very interesting passage that actually shows the encounter of Jesus on his journey to Jerusalem, and where he performs a very special miracle. I want to begin by mentioning that in the beginning of this passage in the book of Luke, Jesus is traveling between Samaria and Galilee. And you and me know very well that Samaria and Galilee were cities that were full of tension. The Jews never interacted a lot with the Samaritans. But as he nears the village, 10 lepers approach him. They keep their distance because of their condition and according to how the law had required them. And these men, being outcasts, be left for fate, for their fate in life, look at Jesus and cry out and say, "Jesus, have pity on us." They recognize Jesus' authority and power from afar. And Jesus responds with a simple and yet profound command. He looks at them and tells them to go and show themselves to the priests. Now, according to the Jewish law, the priests were the ones to declare a person healed of leprosy and able to re-enter into the society. Because you remember so well, there are moments that priests would actually, the lepers would actually be healed, and it was the work of the priest to declare that that person is healed. And so these 10 men demonstrate their faith and take the direction that Jesus had told them to do. They do that in obedience and in faith. Now, among the 10 men, there was one Samaritan. Remember, Jesus was on his way. He was between Jerusalem and Samaria. And what is happening is that this Samaritan realizes that he is healed along the way and turns back to Jesus with a loud voice. And he praises God. He falls at the feet of Jesus. And coming back to Jesus, he expresses gratitude and shows great significance of the power of God working in his life. There's something about this Samaritan that was very unique. Out of the life of this Samaritan, the lesson that came out very clearly, or that comes out very clearly, is that gratitude, brothers and sisters, is not just a feeling, but an action. He was not just contented to feel grateful, but he took a step and went to Jesus and expressed gratitude to Jesus. Now Jesus responded to the Samaritan, and he asked the Samaritan, "Were not all cleansed? Where are the other 9? And when Jesus says this, he's actually acknowledging that God's blessings, when we receive God's blessings, it is always important to actually express gratitude. He looks at the Samaritan and he tells the Samaritan, "Rise and go, for your faith has made you well." Now there's several lessons that I want to pick up and bring this morning, that out of this gospel reading comes out very clearly. Number one, it is important to recognize your blessings. Recognize your blessings in your lives. We often experience God's blessings in various forms. It is important to recognize those blessings. Look at the health He has given you. Look at the provision He has given you. Look at the family He has given you. There is always one or two things you can go about and look around and say, God, you have blessed me. Look at the life He has given us. We are right now out of a very trying week as a country. But despite that, we can still go back and still look at some of the things that God has done for us and give thanks. It is essential, my brothers and sisters, to recognize these blessings and understand that their source is not from any other place, but from Jesus Christ Himself. Secondly, the second lesson that comes out of this story is that besides recognizing the blessing that God gives you, we are supposed to respond with gratitude. Gratitude should not be a mere feeling. It is not just supposed to be a mere feeling. I'm feeling grateful. No. It is supposed to also have what is called an active response. Look at this Samaritan. He turns back to Jesus, acknowledging His goodness and expressing thanks through his words, his actions, and worshiping Him. And in the same way, God is calling you and me today to respond with gratitude by showing our gratitude to Him by words, by actions, and by worshiping Him. So while we recognize our blessings, it is important also to respond with gratitude. Point number 3, the Samaritan also praised the God in public, acknowledging that Christ had done these wonders in his life. The act actually that Jesus did was, served as a source of his expression to the people that were around him. In other words, it served as a testimony for these guys who are around him. We also need to share our testimony. A heart of a thanksgiver is a heart that shares the testimony, shares the gratitude of what God has done around his life, pointing people to Jesus Christ. So number 1, he recognized the blessing. Number 2, he responded with gratitude. And number 3, he shared the testimony by declaring what God had done for him. Do you have a testimony of what God has done for you this week? Do you have a testimony of some of the things that God has done in your life? So we are given this opportunity to thank God. You are alive. Give thanks to God. You know, so many things have happened this week that some even were life-threatening. But look at you. God has kept you. You know, God has preserved you. You are in here worshiping. Give thanks to God. Friends, Thanksgiving should not be limited to a season or a single day. Thanksgiving is supposed to be a habit of a daily habit that we inculcate within our lifestyle. When our lives are so aligned with God and we see the things that God is doing in our lives, then we need to cultivate thanksgiving. Let us remember the importance of gratitude in our walk with God. Let us remember, like this one leper who returned to give thanks to God, recognizing the depth of God's mercy and grace in our lives. Let us rise every day with our hearts full of thanksgiving, looking continually to the things that God has done in our lives, and we rise up with jubilation and tell God, God, I thank you for making me what I am today. There is always one or two things you can give thanks to God for. And when you give thanks to God for these things, God is glorified in your life. The story of this Samaritan, actually should supposed to also be a challenge to our lives. And that's the challenge I want to throw as I wind up my sermon this morning. Have you recognized God's blessing in your life? Have you responded to God with gratitude? Have you shared your testimony of what God has done for you and given thanks? This week I've been sharing a testimony from that God delivered me from tear gas. But more, have you actually taken time to cultivate a habit of thanking God every day? So let whatever action that takes place today in your life be a reflection of gratitude. I share that in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.